and maternal mortality, and of course tackling climate change and imminent disasters, among other priorities. It's been said that a country is judged by the level of development it has achieved, which is mirrored on the status of its women and girls. So you see how critical that is. Therefore, it makes good socio-economic sense to invest in women and girls for reasons of equitable, as I said earlier on, and efficient socio-economic development for all, the whole of society. Despite women's competences and ensuring their equal access to all levels as well as fields of education, this will widen the talents and perspectives that countries can draw on to meet these challenges and enable women to compete, particularly for non-traditional jobs, non-traditional areas of development as well, such as in the areas of science, technology, and innovation, on equal basis with men and boys. This is only good for any country, because for development to happen, it's people that make it happen. And development is all about people. And population and development is all about people as well. And it's all about development. People from at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of the development spectrum, because people make development happen. Therefore, it's critical to develop everybody, male or female, irrespective of gender. This is what our president has been doing through the scholarship scheme for girls, for example, in my country, such as what he calls the President's Empowerment of Girls Education Program, and the Jame Foundation for Peace, and the Scholarship Fund for Girls, among others. The UN Secretary General's high-level panel on global sustainability concluded that any serious shift towards sustainable development surely requires gender equality, equity, and the empowerment of women and girls, and has been recognized as one of the fundamentals, indeed, of development. Every day, women take decisions that affect sustainable development, so why not involve them, so that the right decisions are taken? Be it the use of water, fuel, wood, or energy. I'm not saying that all the decisions we take at the traditional level are not wise decisions. Indeed they are, because one good thing about women also is that they are the custodians of both culture, traditions, values, and they are the custodians of the environment as well. And that is why you should involve them in that decision making, as equal partners, of course, as well as beneficiaries of the development process. The attainment of gender equality, equity, and the empowerment of women and girls has long been recognized by many governments, including my own, as important prerequisites for meaningful socio-economic transformation, as I said earlier on, for all. We therefore support the Cairo 1994 ICPD Program of Action on Population and Development. That's why we are here. That's why we joined the partnership. That's why we attended the meeting in Cairo. So the outcomes, as well as the conclusions, we associate ourselves with very much, as well as of the Beijing Fourth Conference on Women. They are very similar. The objectives, in fact, Cairo made Beijing easier, because the agreed language we had in Cairo made it easier for us to adopt Beijing, even though both of them are tough. Anything about women is usually tough, and you really have to negotiate on behalf of women. It was difficult, but thank God we achieved it, both in Cairo and in Beijing. Particularly, the World Conference also talked about the 12 critical areas of concern. If you remember, it was Africa that brought in the 12th one. We had 11. And Africa decided that the girl child is a priority because of the future woman, so it was incorporated in the platform for action. And the 23rd special session, if you all remember, of the General Assembly as well on women, is a very important meeting as well. In this respect, significant achievements have been made in closing the gender gap over the years and empowering, as a result, our women and girls. Of course, we have made some achievements, but we have a long way to go too. We may only be halfway. Some countries are ahead of others. We are not all in the same level. In the Gambia, about 65% to 70% of the agricultural labor force, according to statistics, is women, and more than 89.9% of these, of course, live in the rural areas. Women always stay. If there's anybody migrating most of the time, I'm not saying women don't, but it's mainly young men who migrate than women. The Back to the Land initiative, spearheaded by His Excellency the President of the Republic of the Gambia, plays a very significant role in improving women's productivity and by increasing access to labor-saving devices, access to institutional support services, and as I said, productive assets as well, among them agricultural inputs. Government continues to support resource-poor producers with special attention to crop production by women, horticultural, poultry, and livestock farmers as well. Through the Livestock Horticultural Development Program that we have in the Gambia, and livestock farmers have been assisted because most of them are women, particularly those dealing with small ruminants and poultry, as well as crop production and horticulture. Those are women's crops most of the time, and are already benefiting from this very important support. The initiative is an integral part of Vision 2020, what we call Vision 2020 in the Gambia. It's a long-term development plan, but in order to reach that, we also have an interim plan, which we call the Program for Accelerated Growth and Employment, PAGE, 2012 to 2015, which is the same landmark year when we are going to review the MDGs. Therefore, it's an integral part of both development blueprints, aimed at reducing poverty by raising food security and incomes on a sustainable basis. In relation to the financing for gender equality, equity, and the empowerment of women and girls, government will, with support from development partners, of course, NGOs, the private sector, has over the years implemented activities culminating in the increase of women's access to education and training, productive resources, credit, among others. Significant increases as well have been made and registered in a number of women's programs. For example, we have an increase in women in decision-making positions, example in politics. Just to give an example, in cabinet, 43% of the current cabinet is women, composed of women. 13 of the National Assembly, we need to do a lot more there, is composed of women. And increasingly, women continue to occupy management positions in the civil as well as public services, and of course the private sector. Capacity building for potential women leaders to increase their participation in productive ventures continues to occupy center stage in all our endeavors towards women's empowerment. Gender-based violence is an issue of concern globally, not just in Africa, but very much so in the developed world as well. And therefore, we have come up with a gender-based violence and sexual offenses bills, two different bills, one on gender-based violence, another on sexual offenses. And they've been finalized for enactment by Parliament or the National Assembly. Capacity building in gender mainstreaming, planning, gender budgeting, of course, programming and management, monitoring and evaluation, including research, have been carried out. For example, for ministers at the level of cabinet, and indeed, members of the National Assembly, or our MPs, as we call them, members of parliament, heads of institutions, as well as the staff of the whole gender machinery, that is the gender focal points in government, as well as in the private sector, the NGO, and at the decentralized level, including the private sector and NGOs. All these are expected to later on ensure gender-responsive budgeting and planning at all levels. Rights-based approaches to the empowerment of women and girls have also been carried out accordingly by government and encapsulated in our development agenda. It is in this regard that a number of international instruments that we all know of, conventions, agreements, and protocols, were signed, adopted, and ratified by the Gambia, just like other African countries have, I presume. For example, the Gambia has already sent its first, second, third, fourth, fifth reports to the UN CEDAW committee in New York. And we have done the same at the level of the AU and indeed at all other levels. And we continue to provide, of course, legal aid and legal advice.